I have had much experience, perhaps too much, with drugs in the past, mostly with the psychedelic variety, LSD, DXM, MDMA. The list is endless, but some of my most clearest memories of altered states of consciousness have been on ketamine. Unlike most other drugs where you're either too blown away by the experience or just too fucked to remember, ketamine lets you in through the front door and out the back with all your memories and thoughts intact. So I've decided to write down some of my experiences with Mary Kay, to pass on my knowledge to the drug users of the world. To cut a long story short, my first experience with ketamine was at college. I bumped into someone who I'd had a smoke with a few times and talked about the usual stoner stuff, but still didn't know that well. Anyway, the guy told me he had a couple of grams of ketamine on him and that I was welcome to do a few lines with him later on. Never one to turn down free drugs, I willingly accepted his offer. Later on I managed to find him again and we decided to go somewhere shady so we could snort our gear in peace. Well, as most of you will know, there's no such thing as peace when you're in college, and before we knew it there were about 5 other people tagging along to watch us get high. We all sat down on a bench and my friend proceeded to cut the small lumpy bits of K with a credit card and sort out a couple of nice fat lines. I was told that this was quite a large dose, but it really didn't look that big at all. Little did I know. He snorted his line and I snorted mine and we both sat back to await the effects. Within about 5 minutes I could feel a slight lightheadedness coming on, not at all unpleasant, almost a kind of numb tingling in the brain. My friend told me to stand up and walk about, because it feels freaky, he said. I did so and I felt almost drunk, but my mind was still clear and I was thinking straight. I went to sit with some girls I knew, followed by my friend who was by now also feeling lightly buzzed. As I sat down and talked I could feel the effects coming on fairly strong, like a wave of altered consciousness washing over my body, soul, mind. It wasn't like, wow, where am I? Kind of thing, more of a trippy drunk feeling, but definitely noticeable. By now I was talking louder, and acting a little more stupid. I was doing stuff like flinging my head back with my eyes closed to see what would happen. It must have looked strange to people who didn't know I was high, but I really didn't give a shit. Another noticeable effect on ketamine. One simply ceased to care what others think and what is going on around one is irrelevant. I got up and walked around some more. By now my legs felt very strange. They were numb from the knee down and it felt as if I was walking on clouds. I was getting people to pinch me as hard as they could and I couldn't feel a thing. But I didn't feel dissociated from the outside world as such, more distant and careless. But one clear memory I have is of me talking to someone and suddenly it seemed as if my mind had decided to think about something else. Like I was talking and words were coming out. But I wasn't thinking about what I was saying. The words just flowed. It seemed like my mind had kind of disconnected, for lack of a more appropriate word, from my body and was letting my brain do the talking. It also felt as if my voice was louder and echoing in my head. This was the only kind of dissociative feelings I got. Anyway, I was fairly impressed with the stuff and wanted to try my own little explorations with it at home, and of course visit the fabled K-hole. So I swapped some bud for a small gram. The stuff sat there for weeks until one day I decided to go crazy and try some. A lot, in fact. I did about a quarter of the stuff each, divided into small lines and snorted up each nostril over a period of about 5 minutes. Effects came on very sudden, much more so than before, or maybe it was the fact that I knew what I was looking for this time. Within minutes I could feel myself floating away, my limbs feeling more numb, my body light yet heavy, a kind of body inertia thing. I got up, went to my room, put on some tunes and laid back awaiting my trip to the K-hole. A while later my mind was in another place. I was thinking at a faster pace, thoughts flowed. I felt creative, yet I also felt I couldn't put my thoughts into proper coherent words or ideas, like I was allowed access to knowledge but not allowed to communicate it somehow. I got up and by now my body felt incredibly numb and heavy. It was about 10 minutes after I'd snorted and I still wasn't in tripland. Obviously I hadn't done enough, I thought. I decided to walk about a bit. My body felt liquid, it was limp and flowed almost, like every step I took was a steady rhythmic dance. I could feel the workings of my body, my brain sending impulses to my limbs to do this and that. All this time my mind was in a calm and peaceful state, distant but not disassociated. Time seemed to fly, or did it go slower? Time wasn't a concept I could grasp. I looked at my watch at various intervals, but just thinking about time was hard. How was now different to an hour in the future or an hour earlier? The thought of it was just too much to grasp, so I dismissed time as being unimportant and irrelevant. Another thing I liked about this drug. Time seemed to go as fast as you wanted or as slow. That is to say, time as one experience it is different to how others experience it when one is on ketamine. This is the real wonder of ketamine, how it manages to let you see the workings of reality, time, space, consciousness, etc. It almost breaks it up for you into smaller chunks so your brain can process the information, piece it together, and suddenly everything makes sense. I learned a lot from Mary Kay that summer. I didn't go any higher on the dosage as I wanted it to last. Bekwase, the stuff is pretty rare where I come from. But I want to and probably will do it again at some point. Probably go with the intramuscular method this time though, to guarantee a fully blown K-hole experience. I would definitely recommend it though, but start on a low dose. I can see how ketamine tends to make some people feel freaky. The mind-boggling thoughts are enough to blow away any unexperienced drug user, so proceed with cuation.